There is no America for me unless there is an America for thee. Think about that. Close your eyes and just think about that line. There is no America for me unless there is an America for thee. That is a line that the character Soul said in Act 6 of the off-Broadway production of One Nation, One Mission, One Promise. Hi, my name is Victoria Medina, and welcome to One Nation Scoops, the place where we have a positive and uplifting conversation about America. Now, that quote is really powerful, and the response that we got from the audience was just amazing. I am the writer, the producer, and the director of the off-Broadway play One Nation, One Mission, One Promise. And I welcome you here today. I am in my studio and I have notes in front of me, so forgive me if there are moments when I look away from the camera and look at my notes. I'm going to tell you a little bit about One Nation, One Mission, One Promise. It is a play that I wrote because I wanted to celebrate the unique and diverse citizenship of the United States. It is a play that was surrounded and inspired by the Charters of Freedom, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And I wanted to create a place where everyone in the audience could see themselves on stage and be inspired by people who lived in this country from all walks of life, from in all different parts of the world, all different parts of religion, who are American citizens, who contributed not only to this country, but to your lives today. And that is what One Nation, One Mission, One Promise is about. I cannot wait for you to see it. I'll tell you more about it during this episode. So my story is just to tell you a little bit about myself. I mean, one thing is that if you've been to One Nation Scoops before, you know that it's been a while since I had a chance to post. And one of the reasons is that I, like most people today, I found myself in a position where I was caregiving for family members. And if you're in that position, whether it's for a senior family member or a child, you know that first, your family comes first of all, and second of all, it will take all, if not the majority of your time. In my particular case, it took all of my time because it was multiple physical conditions, as well as advocating for their care, talking to multiple doctors, making sure that everything was being done properly, dealing with the things that we all deal with, also insurance issues. And then, of course, there's also the emotional ups and downs that go along with caregiving. So I've thought of you often. I've wanted to be here quite a bit, but I am also glad that I took the time, because it is with great news that I share that everyone is okay. Everyone is doing well. I myself, as some of you know, when you're caregiving, sometimes you don't take care of yourself. So I wasn't well for a bit as well. And it's just such a joy, an absolute joy, to share with you that I'm fine and my family members are fine, so I can be here with you today without any regrets about taking that time off. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I am a writer. There are three passions that I love. Well, one is writing, one is photography, and one is performing. And I decided that I wanted to try and put everything, all of my passions, under one umbrella. So I created the American Spirit exhibit. It was a photographic art exhibit. And I had a very successful gallery showing, actually a couple of gallery showings. And I was very moved when you know, I was grateful for the people who curated it, created the showing, but also very moved by the response from the audience, and grateful for everyone who bought one of the artworks, and now is displaying on their walls in various places around the country. You could see the artwork at victoriamedinagallery.com. I plan on creating more, and of course I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So that was the first part of the trifecta. And then from there, I knew from the writing part that I wanted to write a book. So I wrote the book One Nation, One Mission, One Promise, which included the original photographic artwork and then poetry and prose. And the beauty of that, and you could see that on Amazon, and the beauty about that book was, again, the response that I received from people, the absolute joy in I wanted to create something that was uplifting and inspiring, and that's the response that I received from people, that it was uplifting, it was inspiring, it was something that they that they received a lot of inspiration from, not just from the poetry and the images, but also the quotes from famous Americans who have done extraordinary things in our lives, for our lives and in their lives. And then from there, I wrote the play, and it became an off-Broadway production called One Nation, One Mission, One Promise. And the response from the audience, again, what I received in the cards, and we had comment cards when they were leaving, and the applause. But most importantly, we also received wonderful high scores on show score, where they talked about what the show meant to them. We got an 85 show score, which was fantastic, and I cannot wait for you to see the play. I want you to really enjoy the experience of this, and of course, when it comes to your community, we'll let you know. So I'm here today to continue and inviting all of you to join this conversation about how we can really get to know each other and talk to each other. And one of the quotes from the show made me also think about what I've been doing these last few months, which is caregiving. And in many ways, we start out by having a family member care for us, and then from there, and usually a family member, and then from there we will take care of ourselves, and then we take care of the people around us, whether it's children, friends, family, the neighbors, our neighbors. I remember growing up helping my neighbors out. And then if you could go even further, if you joined the Girl Scouts, or you've done something else that's community minded, you may get involved in your community, volunteer work, and then something on a national level. And I thought about how caregiving really has a ripple effect, and how we ultimately, in many different ways, caregive to each other. And so I thought of this quote from the play, which George Washington said, and he said this: "I had always hoped that this land might become a safe and agreeable asylum to the virtuous and persecuted part of mankind, to whatever nation they might belong." George Washington, 1788. One of our founding parents wrote this in 1788. Now, as I said, One Nation, One Mission, One Promise really was inspired by the Charters of Freedom. And here is a man who was a part of the signing and the beginning of our aspiration to live up to those Charters of Freedom, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And so in many ways, when you think about where he began in 1788 to where we are today, in many ways, his vision, his dream has come to fruition. A perfect example is that I can speak to you here right now. And this transmission goes out all over the world to whoever feels inspired to watch it and join all of us here today, speaking to you. I get to do that. over 100 years ago, women were considered legally dead in this country. Think about that. Legally dead in this country. Because when they got married, women were considered property and had no rights. So I always think about how when the Charters of Freedom first came to fruition, it's always been an aspiration. And from one generation to the next generation to the next generation, we strive to do better for each generation. And in many ways, we've come very far. And we do know today that we do have a long way to go. Now, when I started writing One Nation, One Mission, One Promise, when I started the photographic art exhibit, it was long before this administration. And I truly believe the inspiration from these stories and these quotes and these people will be there as it was before this particular administration and after this administration. It has that kind of longevity, just like the Charters of Freedom. And I often think if we could talk to each other more and have a conversation, we hear a lot about the country being divided. And I'm not one to dispute that. But I live in New York. And there is a place in New York called the High Line. And if you come to New York, go to the High Line. It's a really, really cool place. It's like these railroad tracks. There's an old railroad track that goes, I think, for about 5 or 6 miles. And it's just the width of a railroad track that they made into a park. But when you walk along that railroad track, oh my God, the thing that is so amazing is the eclecticness. You see people from all walks of life, from all these different countries, all these different languages, just walking along this very small square radius and having a great time. And I think about how in certain parts of the world and in certain parts of this country, people are angry with each other for a variety of reasons. And part of it is really just minimizing our compassion, our generosity, and our humanity. And so when I think about, when we hear about how divided we are, I also hear that sometimes it's a survey and it's about 1,000 people. And I think, wow, there's millions of people in this country. 1,000? It's not really a lot to make a decision about how divided we are. And the other thing I think about is sometimes we get a lot of this information from news outlets. And, well, how many different newscasters are there? Maybe a few thousand? Again, not a lot of people. So maybe we could take the time and find out and talk to each other and get to know each other and find out how much we are connected. And then we could also see our differences. Now, there's something great about differences because it is our differences that make us great. And it's our differences where we learn from each other. But we also have to have a common bound. And one of our common bounds is, of course, the Charters of Freedom that we all have a right to live under. And we all have a right to benefit from. So when I say, join the conversation, I started thinking about caregiving. And with caregiving, there's always a loving element to it because you love the person that you're caring for. But then there's also the element of frustration when it's a roller coaster, when you think something's getting better, when something doesn't come through, and I'm sure we've experienced this with our loved ones, we want them to take care of themselves and maybe they don't always follow the doctor's instructions and we're like, oh my God, I want you to be okay, you need to do this. So when you're loving, you feel the possibilities are so massive and so open. And if you think about the possibilities in 1788, can you imagine if George Washington was here today to be like, wow, look how far our possibility went. This dream that they had to create this country that would include people from all walks of life. So possibilities is where we're open and majestic and really being creative and finding solutions and speaking to each other and getting to know each other and asking questions. If you've seen, like, I think about how, you know, Steve Jobs created the iPhone, and he's of Arab descent. There was an African American man who shared the smallpox. That's how we get the smallpox vaccine, from a gentleman who came from Africa. So we share and we give and we keep expanding what we have in this country. So when we're open, we can expand. But when we're angry, don't you feel small? Don't you feel like everything's closing in? That there's no options, there's no possibility. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Nothing's going to get done. And then everything shrinks and nothing gets done. So I want you to really think about that. Think about the possibilities, about getting to know people. You don't always get a chance to know, and how healing that could be. Now mind you, when I say get to know someone, it could be just a neighbor, someone who's different from you, someone that you've never spoken to before. And always make sure you're in a safe environment, because you don't know. And in today's world, we have to be careful. It doesn't mean we don't grow, we don't expand, we don't allow the opportunities to stop us and to contract, but that we're careful about what steps that we take. So go and see, like, what is that small step you could take that you can learn and share something with someone that maybe you give to your child, or you give to your partner or your loved one, that you could share with somebody else that might uplift their life. And then maybe you could receive something from them that uplifts your life. And suddenly, it's not so frightening to be with somebody who's different from you, because you already have a bond. You're an American, or you're a recent resident here, and we're all living under the Charters of Freedom. And didn't you love that first line? I love that first line in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Now, when Elizabeth Cady Stanton created the Declaration of Sentiments about 120, maybe 140 years later, I'll know exactly next time I talk to you. I wrote it down in my play, but I forgot right now. She wrote in the Declaration of Sentiments, all men and women are created equal. And when the vote, which is this year for women, 100 years ago, anniversary, that was finally acknowledged. So when I look at the Declaration of Independence and I read all men are created equal, I see that as a generic phrase, men, like history. Although I like using the term her story a lot more now as well. So it's like, we say Google, Google something when we're on a web browser. And so I see men, the term men in that document to include everybody. No matter your gender, no matter your gender preference, no matter your religion, no matter what country you come from, it includes everybody. And with each step of our aspiration, we get better. And when we don't, that's why getting to know each other better will help us to be better for the future generations, because we have come a very long way and we have a long way to go. So how can we contribute to that? So join the conversation below. And one thing that's really exciting is that the quote, "There is no America for me unless there is an America for you." I now have, I spoke to a number of people about this and they're all excited, and we included it on a tote bag. So you can buy the tote and share that message with everyone. You can gift the tote, which is great because I went into a store one day and I decided to buy a tote bag instead of a gift bag. And this gave that person 2 gifts instead of 1. And it's also really environmentally friendly. So you could buy the tote, gift the tote, and then join the conversation. Leave a quote below. Tell people about it. Let's talk to each other. Let's get to know each other. Let's find out how connected we really are. Let's find out how we could teach each other, learn from each other, grow together, and give to each other. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope and pray that my family continues doing really well so I can continue talking to you. And I will see you. Please share any questions you have, any ideas that you have, and I look forward to talking to you again. Until then, remember, there is no America for me unless there is an America for you. Thank you.